Welcome to Profisee's presentation of the Profisee CCPA discussion. So in the next half hour to 45 minutes, I'm going to go through what our CCPA offering is meant to provide to customers, kind of talk about what the California Consumer Protection Act entails, and how a Profisee accelerator can help small, medium, even large size businesses manage their California Consumer Protection Act enablement and really any Protection Act enablement as more and more areas of the country look at consumer protection laws. My name is Tyler Graham. I'm the Director of Emerging Technologies here at Profisee. I'm also the creator of our CCPA model and have been working in this space for a little over a year. I definitely worked on GDPR before CCPA, but have worked with a number of companies in a myriad of industries to help kind of align their CCPA goals with compliance. So our agenda is going to be, what does the Consumer Protection Act entail? Identify where customers' data lives, the processes that are necessary, and then at the end we're going to talk about what's included in the model, really what's included in our package solution that you can then use. I don't want to call it really a package of solution. I probably should call it an accelerator because each industry is going to have to, and customer is going to have to do some customization work to really meet their needs. So the first thing I just wanted to kind of show is that there's two problems that are really fighting against the current of consumer protection. And one of that is that data volumes are growing, right? There's just so much data spread out across the world and at very many different hubs and in the cloud and different locations. So data volumes are going up, system complexity is rising, as well as initiatives to deal with digital transformation is happening. So a lot of data that used to be on paper is being put onto the web. I guess I also will say, what goes without saying, that anything that is still on paper probably is going to be much harder for us to deal with. So if you have any customer reports that are printed out or any of those things, they're going to be things you should definitely deal with consumer protection, because you really need to forget that customer completely, whether it's in a file format or in paper format. But it'll be much harder for us to address those issues with a system itself. So when you're doing digital transformation, the two things people usually think of is revenues and costs. So we want to increase revenues and we want to decrease costs. But the one we're going to talk about today is really where we want to decrease risk. So this can be two different things. It can be compliance risk and risk of being fined, or it can be also the risk, and this is also included in the Consumer Protection Acts, the risk of releasing customer information to the wild. So the more that we understand that information and manage that stuff across the organization. And just a byproduct of this whole exercise is, once we really have a handle on customer data across the organization, we're really going to increase our agility as well, right? So that we'll actually be quicker to work with our customers, because we'll really know how they exist across our entire enterprise. So let's talk about CCPA. So CCPA is short for California Consumer Protection Act, and it came about a little over a year ago. It was enforced, or became enforceable it became into being and actually enacted as of January 1st of this year, and enforcement will start to occur 6 months after enactment. So you still have a little bit of a grace period right now while you try to figure out your processes, but it's really important for any citizen of California, whether you're a California customer or not, that you manage these things. But again, while I'm going to talk about CCPA, because that's the impetus that's going to be most on people's minds right now. California is a huge state and affects a lot of companies, and they really care about this. This really is a talk about any protection act that exists, right? A lot of the things that we do here, while it's customized for CCPA, It could be used for GDPR or for any of these other ones that might spring up in the next couple of years, whether it's Colorado, I think, is looking at one, China is looking at a thing. So the same processes we talk about here will be leveraged there. Now, each law is written a little bit differently, has different restrictions and requirements for the way you work with people, but the natural set of what you need to do isn't vastly changed. And so it might just be a little bit of customizations to your current processes that can make that the case. And we also suspect, as California is one of the largest and a little bit ahead of the curve, that a lot of people are going to snap to the California process, similar to you would see with even car emissions. A lot of times people will just make the car emissions meet California standards because it's such a large market. The same thing is going to be true potentially for this California Consumer Protection Act leading the charge, and so a lot of these things will be the same. But it does have some distinct differences from GDPR, and it is based on CCPA. All right, with that out of the way, let's talk about the different pieces. So the first part of the act, and the thing that really is important here, although probably the one that's least managed inside our system, is data release. So you know, obviously you need to secure your customers' data. You have to have things like two-factor authentication. You want to make sure that you indeed do those things. You want to have good email spam control to make sure that your employees aren't releasing their password to the wild. That then gives people control. None of that I really am here to manage. What we're going to focus on is understanding where that data lives, and then giving that as a process so that the data protection owners that are going to own those systems can at least know that this system needs to be hardened or managed very securely. And we want to limit access to those systems as much as possible, especially administrative access. And potentially, as we've done in some cases like healthcare, even watch who actually goes into those systems and looks at data, right? So that we ensure that customer data is only touched by people that should have access to that data. So what we're going to do is help you manage notifications of data breaches. So if a data breach does occur, we'll be able to understand who is actually a part of that system and be able to meet the criteria of the time limits required for the data breaches. You only have so long to notify customers that their data has been breached, and how wide that data breach was, what of their information got out. Was it credit card information? Was it their phone numbers, their addresses? What information did they lose? Social security numbers. And again, this is where the data protection officer should know what is being stored in that system, so I can know how important it is to lock that data down. Control and assess where customer data lives, right? So some of this is going to be done through process and the ways that your company works, but we want to provide the tooling and the technology to help with that process and really use that data. Ensure you store the correct data everywhere, right? So you want to ensure that you're not storing additional data in multiple locations, right? The less that you duplicate data across systems, just because if it doesn't have a business need, you should try to avoid that as much as possible. The second place, and this is where we're starting in, where places where we're really going to be able to help you, is minor management. So we want to be able to control parent to child relationships so that we can understand, and I probably shouldn't say parent there, maybe we should say guardian to child relationships, so that we understand who has the rights to help manage customers. Let me take a step back and say that CCPA is really also intended to make sure that parents have control of their kids' identities and the marketing opportunities to those kids, or the information that is disseminated to people for children under 18. So two big pieces there. One, we want to make sure that we understand the relationship of a guardian to a child and store that information within our system and be able to pass that to all the systems that control that information. Many systems are not created to give a relationship between two customers, especially a minor to a guardian relationship. And we want to also ensure the management of the opt-out and the right to be forgotten. So a parent can choose to opt out of marketing materials, and you have to respect that request. And also, you have the right to be forgotten. So we're going to talk about that in just a second for both the parent and the child. But in the case of the right to be forgotten, we have to make sure that that is a valid request from a real guardian of that customer. So we need to understand that process. So in the right to be forgotten, basically a customer can call any company, and as long as that customer is a citizen of California, and I think it's a little hazy on whether they are a current citizen or even a former citizen may be able to call. In that case, if they have a residence in California or have some relationship with California, they can call and ask you to forget them out of the system. And so the first things that we're going to do is provide a tooling around that process. So whether they call in to a customer service rep or if they do it online, we will have a good representation of who that customer is and the PII data locations. In our base model, we're going to have some base forms that are going to manage that process. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But we've talked with some larger customers that want to build this into a website, and that will also have some ability to, and this will be customized, right? We have an accelerator, but then there'll be some customization on this, where they're going to actually have an API process where they're going to leverage data from a lookup before create, although create's a bad word here. Maybe a lookup before destroy is a better name for this. But they're going to be able to look up their information, but they're going to question them like 3 or 4 different times on things such as phone number and their address, where they give 4 or 5 different choices, one being an address they actually live at, and 3 other ones being vague and not real. And it won't be an entire address, but a piece of that address, like maybe the street, the possibly the number, but only one piece of that address, and they'd have to pick that out of the list. And then they'll get a secondary question where they'll get like 2/3 of the phone number, not enough to call them, but the area code and possibly the last 4 digits, or maybe the area code and the location. And they'll get, again, 4 or 5 choices. 1 is real and 4 are, made up. And they'll have to pick from those different ones. And once they do that, and they may meet like 3 or 4 of these different requests, then they'll be able to go in and actually opt in to be forgotten. And that will remove all of their data from all the different systems. So we can build this process to forget, right? So there's a couple of we have this process to forget kind of built in, although it's customizable. And there's a couple of different things that we found very important with this. One is that you can go in and you can just make everybody Jane Doe within your system. And if you did that, what's going to happen, especially with California being so large, is that Jane Doe might be the person that takes the most flights or gets the most haircuts or has the most transactions at your bank or the most looks on Twitter because Jane Doe is not just one person, but it's thousands or millions of people across your organization became the same Jane Doe. So what's really important here is that while we destroy the concept of the individual and the knowledge of being able to personally identify that individual should live on as a separate individual in the system, right? We just have to make sure that we can't identify them anymore, right? And each company will have to determine with their lawyers and as a governance council what they consider enough to keep, right? So we have some customers that are looking at going all the way down to the zip code and wiping all that information, and then other ones where they're going to leave the zip code so they can still do some processing. The things we feel are not allowed is you cannot keep house level geo coordinates, right? That would be easy enough to figure out a person living there. You can't keep social security numbers, you can't keep phone numbers, you can't keep addresses. But things such as zip code, especially if you have enough customers in that zip code, maybe is it not that personally identifiable? And there might be 100,000 people who live in a zip code. The piece here is that it's going to keep that individual by doing a thing. We have a funny term where we call it Fred Forgotten. And the idea is that we want to have a number associated with that. So as I forget each person, they become Fred Forgotten 127, Fred Forgotten 128, Fred Forgotten 129. And we remove all person identifiable information, but that person still is the same sales they've had. They had the same touch points with us. They have the same support cases. We've just scrubbed any information about their name out of that system. So we also can have automated processes where once you've determined that this relationship should be deleted, that it can be destroyed. And we can also have two different ways we can do this. We've done direct integration because there's certain systems where we can actually go and send that data back and remove that data from the system. And then other ones where we're going to send for email notifications for unmanaged systems. So this is systems that we don't have direct integration for. Either they have very hard firewalls, we aren't allowed to change that data, or it's just not capable to do that. And so we will give you both of those options. And again, this will be configurable and customizable for your organization. So let's just get a little bit deeper into each of these things and talk through them. So the first step is to control their data is to identify the location. So this is all the locations where the customer data must be identified, right? And this is really a process step. We can help a little bit with this, but for the most part, each customer is going to have to figure this out on their own. And some of our customers, they've working with a big 5 firm or another consulting firm that's more business process driven to help them locate the customer data across their organization, as well as what PII exists in each of these systems. Systems to think about are sales, support, logistics, data warehouses, any place where we might have customer attributes. We also want to identify all customer attributes that need to be removed from the system, and whenever possible, load that data into Profisee. The benefit of this is that we're going to load those records in and be able to see the whole view of that customer when they call in. Things you need to worry about is if I'm a hospital or something like that, do I have a pre-existing relationship? Do they owe me money, right? I can't forget a person if they still owe me money. That's not the intent of this law. The intent of this law is not to let them wipe out their debts with you. It's that if they have a free relationship with you where there's no obligations either way, that would be the case. Also, if you're an airline, right, if they have pre-existing tickets, they're going to be very upset if they ask to be forgotten and lose their actual tickets, right, where they can't actually travel, whether that's a train, a plane, potentially even a car. So we want to then take those records, load them into our Profisee system, and master those records. So this idea is that we want to take all the records from all the managed sources and group them together to figure out who this person is. So when that person calls in, I can understand exactly what footprint they have across my organization and if I have any pre-existing relationships. It's easier to understand and it's easier to clean that data, right? If I know what that data is and I have it all in one place, it's easier to take care of. And then we need to manage minor to guardian relationships, need to manage the forgotten process from all systems in an organized way, right? So this is the Fred forgotten we just talked about. And really just manage the data transfers from the system. That manage also will be included if I know all the systems, I can also ensure that if I've lost their password, that I can make sure that I change it in as many systems as possible if I have identified all the systems, right? So that they can't come in and lose any data. Gartner, I don't have it on my slide because I don't like to show other people's stuff, but Gartner has said that the cost for managing CCPA for each customer, they estimate at $1,400 per request. So that's a pretty expensive thing. Obviously, some of our larger clients think that might be a little high, that they can do it for cheaper than that, but that is the average Gartner number. So this idea is to help with tooling to make this as palatable as possible as you do it across your organization. The issues, or if you get infractions that occur for each individual that you either don't forget, you don't opt out of marketing when they ask to, or that you breach their stuff, the penalties for that is up to $7,500 per individual. So the penalties are harsh, but also the cost of administrating is harsh as well. So what we're talking about is we really want to identify all those sources. And this is just an idea of getting the idea where we're going to find the data across all the organization and we're going to bring it into the customer master, right? Bring that all together. Now we understand that, and this constellation of customer data across the organization is managed locally, and it's going to be a bi-directional thing. But right now, the first thing is to get it all into our system and really create a customer master. Once we have it in there, there's basically 3 types of matching for customer protection. The first one is aggregating records. This is what we're talking about with the grouping of things. So this is going to find duplicates within a single system. We should try to remove those as much as possible. The less we have to manage, the better. and the less likely we're going to lose data for a customer. We want to group records from systems across the organization. So we want to figure all those things together, bring them together, and it's important to tune results to limit false matches and untrue orphans, right? So this is the idea of that we don't want to group things together, because if we eliminate a person from Wisconsin, it could create havoc for our business. If they're grouped in with a person from California and they're not the same person. On the other hand, we don't want to get hit with a $7,500 fine because we did not recognize that there was these 6 other records for James Smith that existed within my system. Householding, we want to bring together related records. This is very good for minor and guardian relationships, and it's really about focusing on the fields that unite relationships. So this might be about everybody who lives in the same house. This might be parent-son relationships. This might be the same phone numbers or similar phone numbers, that kind of things. But the idea is with last name. But we can build householding things and some householding strategies that we can provide. And then look up before create is also a value here, because it is going to help us limit the duplication in the creation process, and this is just going to help you long term, right? The less data that gets in the system, is the less chance that I'm going to miss a record or misidentify that thing. So we want open and loose strategies here, so that when people are loading data, this is also going to be used in the case we were talking about before, where I might have a website where people are going to automate the process of doing the right to forgotten. So they don't have to call in and talk to a customer service rep. They can do this look up before create process, and this is where they would actually do the challenging process and add that in there. So it keeps the customer footprint as limited as possible, so it helps you with the consumer protection. I want to talk a little bit about golden record management and what that entails, but we have 2 source systems here, but you can see there's some differences in the names and differences in the way the source address works. And the idea here is we want to bring that data together by address standardization first. This is not required for CCPA in any way. It just helps to determine things when we bring stuff together. And then the next thing we're going to do is do address standardization, geocoding, deliverability. Once that is completed, we'll go to parsing and standardization. This can be used, name parsing can be used to help find minor and guardian relationships. Email parsing and verification can help to group records together, and phone parsing can help with verification strategies or different things like that. Then we want to do configurable match strategies, right? So this is about in-memory index and fuzzy matching algorithms to group the records together. And this is where our data stewardship is going to be helpful, and the tooling can really find the records together. And then the third one, less important for CCPA, but something we can do, is create a master record of that customer. So the best data across all those organizations. And this is really good because your business is going to continue to grow. You're going to have new best of breed systems. And if I can use survivorship, I can make sure that the best data is what I use to create those records in my organization and make them already defined in the systems that we exist, right? So the less we have fuzzy, bad data in other systems, the more likely we're going to be able to know who that person is and be able to manage their life cycle through our organization. So like, what's in the Profisee CCPA Accelerator? We should kind of talk through this. So first, there's going to be a model. There's going to be CCPA-based entities and relationships central to customer process. There's going to be system sources, customers, data owners, guardians. We expect customizations for your specific business. This is not a one-size-fits-all. This is not that type of arrangement. You're going to have to determine what PII is for your organization, and you're going to have to determine what the process is to manage these things. What do you want to store about data protection officers? What is the information you're going to do about data owners or guardians? Do you even have minors? Any of this stuff is going to have to be customized and detailed for your system. What this does is give you an accelerator where I estimate we are providing a solution out of the box that's going to cover about 70 to 80% of the tooling you need, right? So if you're a mid-sized company and you really can't afford to spend $1 million on this problem, you can use our system to get up and running at a much cheaper cost. Validation rules, right? This is going to identify the required fields, things you're going to need. It's going to do cleansing and standardization processes for addresses, names, and emails. Basically, be able to manage the data across the organization and ensure this data is correct and as set up as possible. And then portal processes. We provide web-based forms for managing the customer interactions, whether that's minor management or forget process, or even the data protection officers, evaluating and approving redaction requests, which was the forget process. And we also have a process for automated forget management, so that it will actually do that forget, Fred forgotten, give it a number, update those fields, save those problems, so that once you set up what that strategy is, nobody has to touch those records by hand or deal those things as much as possible. It can also send out email notifications, letting people know, hey, this is an offline system, but you need to remove this PII for this customer out of that system by hand, and you need to then verify with us that that is the case. You can build in a 2 or 3 step approval process for that email notification, even though it's an offline system. So that's my presentation for right now. I just want to take 1 second to kind of give you an idea of what this looks like and what the Profisee solution entails. So here's the model, and so you can see here that we have like minor authority, we have the country lists, we have our customer and all the different pieces in here, whether it's the data breached or match status or redaction request for those things, or info request date. What information are we storing? That's also something we can have to provide to a customer. Because really it's about taking ownership of their own data in your organization, and that as much as possible we wanted to give you a strategy for that. It's going to come with matching and survivorship things, so we have our look for create and our customer matching. We can also build household matching, although that's so unique for different things I didn't want to have one automatically in our system. And then it's going to have data quality rules, right? These are the rules that manage that process, determine if somebody's a child, how that stuff works, and do those types of things, as well as managing a request and what is required on a request. We also have customizable forms, but once we have built those forms will then show up into a UI here. And you can see that I have certain things here where I can see the data quality rules that are missing on different records, and I can see what my match groups are for different members, and I can actually go into a record here. And this is going to include both of my Fred forgottens, as you can see here, as well as my customers that have not been forgotten. And if I click on one of these records, I can actually add or open the member and then look at this form. But this is all customizable with different forms for personal system, the CCPA redactions and data breached, and all related fields for this customer. So I have a control attributes and a management process for this. I also have the ability for customers to come in here and change addresses and do those types of things. Everything about our system is also API driven, so that is where other customers will embed our processes into their already pre-existing websites. So a lot of ways you can leverage our solution when you're tackling your CCPA problems. I just wanted to give you an overview. I think that's a good thing. We will have a question and answer after this, so I can answer any questions for you, and we'll move to that now. Thank you for your time.